Welcome to our, I think, is this our 10th week, Kevin,
I
of
believe
weekly
so.
flow?
Yep.
Very exciting. Everything seems to be going very quickly, kind of getting towards the end of our quarter. And today we're going to be talking about um, business development, specifically through our generation or our cultivation of VIPs, very important people. So the purpose of this class is to do business development, B2B we call it, or creating new VIPs. And we want to explore potential sources of new business. So no matter where you're at in your business, whether you're brand new or you've been doing this for a long time, it's super important to be always backfilling your database. Now, of course, that's going to be with new clients and new past clients. It's going to be with new friends that you meet at different places. But we want to be, this particular class is specifically about business development through other business people and what we call influencers or loudmouths. That's what we used to call them. We used to call them loudmouths. Now they're called influencers. So the question is, are you intentionally creating VIP relationships? Are you being purposeful about what does that look like, and cultivating those VIP relationships? And then the question is, how will this help you in flow? So we're always, every class that we do, we always want to tie this back to our bigger purpose, which is we want to be living in flow. We want to be doing things on a daily basis that create this kind of ease at which we go through the flow of life, where our work and our happy time all kind of work together, and that the business is just coming in, and it's not this grind. So why is business development so key? Again, we've talked about a little bit. We talk a lot about the database and how important it is, from the past client standpoint, or in other classes. And in fact, you'll see in this class, there's going to be some callbacks from other things that we've already talked about. But your database is a living, breathing thing. It's so easy to let your database just sit there like a bump on the log, not do anything, when really we need to be filtering it out, and we need to be taking people out that shouldn't be in there anymore. And of course, adding new, higher quality people into our database. Of course, you should always be adding family and friends, current and past clients, who we talked about. But what about the who's in our life? How can we add them into your pipeline? Local business people, influencers, loudmouths. This should be a vital part of your business. Many of you have heard me talk about the VIPs in my database. Some of them are giving me multiple deals per year. And if you can imagine that, the value of one individual giving you multiple deals, rather than the one-off of each one of our follow-ups on a past client, or a good friendship, it's a completely different animal, right? So we're trying to create that kind of vein of gold of somebody who's giving you multiple deals per year. But the question is, how do we do it? How do we purposefully go out and create those relationships? So what we've discussed so far during the last 10 weeks is we did just discuss networking events and having those top 10 questions that you can have. So this is still useful in this conversation. We talked about the triangle of trust, which we're also going to circle back on here in a minute. But here's some other great ideas for you to start to look for. Who are these people? Where could I find them? I think that one of the most common questions that Kevin and I get is, who do we call? I mean, we don't even know who we should start with, or how is it that we go about finding these people? And so that's what we're gonna kind of dive into here a little bit. So one of the things that you can do is to join a group of that you're already interested in. So whether that's a golf group or a knitting group or a book club or whatever it is, the more of these things that you are participating in, the more you're going to find business in there. If I look back at so much of my business has come from not just the business people, not just past clients, but organizations I'm in, my tennis club, the guys I used to play poker with, the people I used to play volleyball with, I feels like I've done deals for all of those people, and that's how this whole business works. And that is part of being in flow. Show up, be yourself, be great, come from contribution. It's not about talking about business every time you're there, but you want to make sure that they know, of course, that you're in the business. But after that, it's more about showing up and being your best self. Getting on the board of directors of your favorite charity. This is one that is often missed, and this is like a two-bagger, right? Because you get to go in and be participate in the community. You get to give back. You get to be helpful. But the people that are typically on these boards, these are influencers. These are important people in the community that are, have that, exactly that kind of VIP quality that we're looking for. And when they get to see you in a volunteer capacity where you're coming from contribution and you're showing up being yourself, that attraction will then lead to ultimately at some point to doing some business with them. The other thing you can do is read local articles. So for those of us who still read the newspaper, that's a local newspaper. It's a great way to find out what's going on in the community, who are the movers and shakers, who just got a promotion, what event is coming up, and reach out to these leaders within the community. You can obviously do the same thing on social, as long as it's local. Looking for the same kind of information on social media will have the same exact effect. The difference is that you're not going to just look at who these are and go, oh, that's an interesting story. You're going to figure out a way to get in front of these people and reach out to them directly. And then the last thing is pay attention to the local loudmouths, right? The influencers. These are the people that they may not actually be in business, but they're always out in the community. They're always out talking. They have an opinion. And people, it's not just an opinion, by the way. It's not, it's not people that are just whatever it is that are raising hell and nobody's listening to them. It's the people that are actually having influence. It's okay to reach out to these people directly and say, hey, I'd love to have a cup of coffee. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So here's all the actions. All these actions will put you in front of some new faces, which is really what we're trying to do. By the way, all of these, it's not as if any of these, it's not as if each one of these people should be a VIP. They're a potential VIP, right? We got to go a little bit further to find out if that's what we want them to be. So you want to start paying attention to who you want to know better. Use these questions as a filter. Are they the kind of people that you like? In other words, if you're not attracted to them, scratch them off your list. Use this as a filter. Do they have influence? If they're really great people, but they really don't have any influence, they may not be qualified as a VIP. And then also, can you add value to their life or their business? One of the greatest stories of VIP in my world is I had a guy that he's a lender, and he wanted me to be, or he wanted to be my preferred lender. And the short version, I hope I go short enough on this. The short version of the story is that I was already a lender. This is 2008. I already had, at the time, we all could be lenders. I had my own little brokerage, and I had an in-house processor, and we were brokeraging mortgages as well as selling real estate. I know that's cringy, but let's just skip over that part. The point is, it was kind of a little bit courageous of him to be wanting to be my preferred lender. I turned him down on his cold calls 3 times. Finally, I decided, okay, this guy's persistent. I'm going to meet with him. The first question I ask him is, why do you think, I need a preferred lender when I'm my old lender? He goes, well, that may not be there forever. And in the meantime, I want to start creating a relationship with you. Okay, well, if you were my preferred lender, how many referrals would you give me? He said, none. I'm like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, you're not doing a very good job here of convincing me that I should be working with you. He said, what's important to you? I said, doing more business. He said, yeah. So he goes, if I tell you that I'm going to give you a bunch of leads, but yet I still need, 5 or 10 Rick Warners to make my business work, how could I tell everybody the same thing? He said, I can't. There's no way I could generate that many leads. However, what if I teach you how to generate your own leads? How about if I teach you how to be better at what you're doing? So in other words, the story is, how about instead of me giving you fish, I teach you how to fish, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that, but I didn't really think much of it. So then this guy goes on to follow up. He brings me a book. Hey, have you ever read this book, Jeffrey Gittimer? It's really great. I haven't. I started reading the book. Oh, it's got some good ideas on it. Hey, would you like to meet that guy? He's coming to town. We're going, I got tickets. You can bring your whole team. Oh yeah, that sounds fun. And this guy kept doing that. He kept asking me about my business. How can where are you at with your business plan? Do you have one? I remember we met in like October or November. He's like, let me help you create a business plan for next year. And it was always come from contribution, help me with my business, coach me. And ultimately he became a coach. And there is no one person, here's the end of the story. There's no one person that's had more positive influence on my business than this guy. That guy did become my preferred lender. As you all know, the crash happened in 2008-9. Brokeraging went away. I only was focused on doing real estate. He's been my preferred lender for the last, however many years that is, 14 years. For 14 years, this guy has been my preferred lender, and he gets all of my business. Here's what's funny. Not only has he been the most influential person, but he's also my number one referral source. So yes, he taught me to fish, and he actually gives me fish. And including today, I actually just put him in contract on a house for himself. That happened just like we're sending him the counter offer right now. We just sent it. So the point is like that he cultivated a VIP for me as him. I'm his VIP, but he is also my VIP. That all came from him being willing to make a few cold calls and come from contribution and see what he can do for my business. So I hope that story wasn't too long, but I think it's one of the best examples of how this VIP thing works. And that goes back to he added value to my business, obviously. By the way, I have several of those relationships now, and if you have those, you know how important it is and how great it is to have X amount of deals we're going to come in during the year, but just because of your relationships that you cultivated with these people. Okay, so have a plan to get in front of these people. Figure out who you know in common and ask for an introduction. So you've identified somebody on social or somewhere else. Go to LinkedIn, go to Facebook, find out who you have in common as friends. Ask for an introduction to them. That's going to make your life a lot easier rather than like this guy, Jeremy, had to do all these cold calls to get in front of me. If there's a triangle of trust there, it makes a big difference. Send them a handwritten note. Everybody responds to handwritten notes. It is almost impossible. Have you ever received a handwritten note and at least not opened it up? And if there's a request on there by a handwritten note, I am not going to ignore a handwritten note. And then invite him to meet for coffee or anything else. As Kevin pointed out, since he's on a fast right now, I just want to acknowledge that it doesn't have to be coffee. It could be anything. But the point is that we are out there, getting together, ideally some kind of break bread situation. Now, when you get together with them, don't just talk about business. You want to talk about business, I would say, as little as possible. Go below the waterline. Find out what's going on for them. Find out about their family. Use the Ford questions to really get in there. If they have this desire to talk to you about your business, of course, don't just say, we're not talking about that. But talk a little bit about your business, but then go and focus the attention back on them. Ninja talks about, and we've talked about this a bunch, time of possession. We want the conversation to be about them as much as possible. You want to be curious about them and their lives. What you're doing here is you're creating the beginning of a relationship, right? So that's what we're working towards. Share your struggles. I mean, don't go in there and talk about how horrible your marriage is or something right off the gate, but share your challenges around parenting or maybe around business or whatever. Be vulnerable, I guess is my point. And then find out what's really important to them. This is key in creating and cultivating a relationship, is giving them an opportunity to talk about what's important to them, whatever that is, whether that's their kids or it may be their work, or it may be their struggles with work, or it could be vacations and getting time away, or retirement coming up, or whatever it is. But find out what that is. Now, if they seem worthy of your attention after this. And this is a big, important thing. VIPs, the way it works is it has to be people that there is a symbiotic relationship. It has to be you like them, they like you. They're into your stuff, you're into their stuff. It cannot be one-sided. So this is a big point. If you meet with somebody and you're like, that was never going to get that hour back, don't continue to pursue them. Just move on to the next person. This is not a volume thing. This is a quality thing. We're looking for quality, not quantity. If they qualify for that, then you want to start including them in your systematized reach out. So that's your below the waterline letter. If you remember, that's a once a month letter that you're sending out to your entire database. It talks nothing about real estate. It's you sharing about something, some life experience that you have or some lesson that you learned, but it cannot talk about real estate. And your evidence of success. Remember, these should go out separately. One should go out about 2 weeks apart from each other once a month. Put them on your regular call rotation. Make sure that you are asking, coming from those forward questions where you're being curious about them. Invite them to a regular break bread. Sometimes I'll meet with people that we're so regular about getting together and liking it. We schedule our next lunch while we're at the lunch that we're at, or our next coffee, whatever it is, while we're wrapping up the one that we just had. Hey, this was so great. I look forward to seeing you again. What do you think next month at the same time? Or how about in a couple of months, or whatever it is you feel like makes sense. And then, of course, invite them to your client events. One of the great things about client events is you're only going to get whatever 10 or 20% of your people to come, but 100% of your people are going to know that they've been invited to something. And so whether it's a VIP or it's just your regular database, you're getting a lot of top of brain activity there by inviting them to something that you're not asking for anything, you're giving them, right? Okay, so that in a nutshell is how you start and cultivate a VIP relationship. So what are the roadblocks going to be? To me, the first thing that is challenging is that initial reach out. I know that, I have a hard time calling people I even know, let alone people I don't know. And so that is going to be, for some of you, a real challenge. And I want you to think back to the story. And this is what I do too when I'm having a hard time. Think back to the story I told you about Jeremy and him calling me 3 times. How important is it that this guy took the time to get turned down twice before I met with him? Where would I be if he didn't do that? I don't even want to think about where I would be, because he's had that much influence on my life. So think about, there's people out there that really would benefit from a relationship with you. Think about it in that context, that you have something amazing to bring to their world. And that's where we want to be coming from. And let that power push you through a little bit of fear to reach out and go, hey, I saw that you, just got this promotion in town. I've been watching you, whatever. It seems like we should get to know each other. Can we grab a cup of coffee, something like that? I think, to me, that's going to be the biggest roadblock. When we get into questions and answers here, we can ask about that as well. All right, so here's your homework. Find 3 people in the newspaper or local social media that might be a good candidate for VIP. So all you got to do is find the 3 people. We're not even asking you necessarily to reach out to them yet. Just do the part about about finding them, and then if obviously we want you to call them, but do that part. If you have a hard time with that, or if you have a hard time with finding them, or if you have a hard time reaching out to them, reach out to Kevin and I directly, and we'd be happy to coach you through how to get over that initial hurdle. Okay, so there is your class on business development through VIPs, and that's it.